Good time, dear students. In today's recording, I am talking about William Blake, the English poet, painter, and tent maker by profession. He was born in Soho, London in 1758 and lived quite long life. I mean to say, around 70 years he lived. And he died in 1827 in Fountain Court, Edinburgh. Uh, he was unfortunate in one respect that during his lifetime, and even late after his death, he was not recognized uh, as a poet at all, or as a painter or any important figure. But later on, now he is considered a very prominent uh, figure in the history of romantic poetry and visual art. You will read about him on your own, but I have added a few things to his short biography. His parents, his father, James Blake, he was a hosier, and his mother, Kathleen Blake, was a learned woman of that time. But it was unfortunate for William Blake that he didn't get the chance to be properly educated as other people, beloved people used to be educated by that time. And he went to school for just a few years because at the age of 10, he left school. And then by that time, he had learned only to write and read, means that he was just in the category of literate people and not educated. After that, his mother taught him at home, and this is the reason that he was homeschooled. Furthermore, because he was Christian, so his proper exposure was to the Bible in the beginning, and some of the even his biographer, that is Alexander, and David Dashes, they both uh, agree on this point that the influence of the Bible uh, lasts on him till his death. Means that he lived all his life under the influence of the readings and the morals and the manners that were there in the Bibles. He was very strictly adhering to the ideals of the Bible. At the age of 20, uh, he started engraving, and first he started engraving from Greek models. Later on, in 1772, he became apprentice with Besser uh, to learn uh, engraving properly, and later on he became a professional engraver after passing 2 years as apprentice with Besser. And then he started painting Gothic images from Christian history. Uh, like in Christian history, there were saints who opposed the powers, means the monarchs, the kings. So different punishments were given to them. Some were burnt alive. There were certain saints whose skins were peeled off while they were alive. Some were hanged from trees. So very in every image of means the stories that Blake had come to know about the Christian saints. So the stories were Gothic. Gothic mean horrifying when you are reading such a statement where just think if a person is burnt alive and thrown into fire and screaming and crying and rolling and things like that, or that someone is alive and he is hanged from a tree and is just flaming like a fish without water or a bird. So, what kind of horrifying image is that? And similarly, one who is being tied and his skin is peeled off from. So, this is the history of Christianity in England. And I don't know whether they're facts or not, but they are recorded there. So he stated, he just made them into paintings. And it's not only he, there is a detailed description in Charles Thames' essays also about this thing. So he started painting Gothic images, and the purpose was to glorify the sacrifices those Christian saints had made for the sake of Christianity, for the sake of Jesus Christ, uh, like that. Later on, in 1779, he joined Royal Academy. It was also an academy where art was taught, and specifically because there was no fee for this, academy. So he willingly joined this academy and remained there for some time. He married in 1782, and his marriage itself is something dramatic. But he proved to be a very good husband because this couple lived till 1828, or almost 46 years together, and he died in such situation that only his wife was there. And wife's statement says that the last word I remember that she said that it was not the death of a man, but the death of an angel. Now, some of the important poems of William Blake, although he started writing uh, poems in 1782 and poetical sketches that he first produced. But his prominent work that is considered prominent now, that is Songs of Innocence. He also wrote Introduction to the Song of Innocence, a single poem, and this entire volume, Song of Innocence, in 1799. In this poem, he has this volume. He has focused uh, the innocence of human beings. That human beings are innocent. Is I talked of uh, this Jean-Jacques Rousseau, where he states that institutions corrupt human beings. Otherwise, by nature, they are good. So I was reading David Dash's, and he had remarked somewhere that even in the cunning and the naughtiness of uh, uh, children, there is innocence. Means that in the state of being uh, naughty or notorious somehow, but still there is some innocence involved in it. Then in 1794, he published Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience uh, together, combined. And he made a contrast between two states of human soul. One is innocence, and the other is experience. Winkle Blake is a boy, and he has written his PhD thesis on Songs of Innocence and Experience. And he has stated that Songs of Innocence, this volume, tells human beings about the, like symbolically, the free uh, pre-fall stage. That is when Adam was not fallen from heaven to the earth. So their life was not miserable. Uh, like this is not only he that is saying this thing. There are many people who are uh, of this opinion that human beings are naturally good, like I referred to Rousseau, and even Foucault somehow can be explained in these terms. That human soul, when it has not experienced the ethereal or material stuff, so innocence is maintained in it. But when experience comes, and this experience has been associated with post-fall stage, when uh, was Adam was shifted to the earth, and he was placed on the earth. So then miseries started. So in a way, that is to say that when a person is not yet of age, of age means that a person has not attained puberty, not entered adulthood. So person is less aware of the intricacies and complexities of life, specifically the cunningness and the craftiness, the hypocrisies, and so many other things that are there. But when a person attains puberty, psychological issues can also be there, uh, which are experienced and specifically empirically experienced. That is not, those things cannot be uh, validated by just narrations or by explaining to people, but some when person personally goes through certain circumstances, first-hand experience or lived experience, as it is called. So he proposed that the uh, the experienced life is not peaceful; it is miserable, and probably in the beginning he celebrated life, that life is something good and peaceful and enjoyable. But after experiences, he felt that life is no more enjoyable, as the forms that are included. Of course, you will come to know with the passage of time that how these things are there. Jerusalem is that poem, and it is, as the title clearly says, that is the sacred place for both Jews and Christians, as well as for Muslims. But there was a thing, and the thing was that many Christians were very much against Jews and Judaism. But in the late 15th century, certain ideas they were adopted by Christian clerics, and specifically that related to religion and to mysticism and to prophecies. So he recorded this poem about that. London is another symbolic poem, is included in this. We'll be going through it. Short poem but very meaningful and dense. The Sikh Rose is another I'll be reading, that is very philosophical in nature and very symbolic also. A Poison Tree is another poem that is also included in the poem, and we'll be going through it. But he's talking about human nature, specifically symbolizing friendship and animosity. Then the tiger, uh, I don't know why, but this poem has been praised by too many people, and specifically for uh, musicality, it has been uh, praised by so many people. The Clod and the Pebble, another poem, a bit satirical. The Little Black Boy, again, uh, a very wonderful poem which talks mostly about the identity of human being, that how human beings either having identity or not. And the lamb is a contrast to the tiger, because tiger is a ferocious and powerful animal, while the lamb is innocent and powerless animal. So you will have all these poems are very short. Just certain poems are 12 lines, certain are 16 lines, certain are 20 lines. But all these poems are very short. The Little Black Boy, although it is not included in the course, but you may go for it on your own because it's very philosophical. And a good poem. The Lamb is also not included in the course, but we'll be automatically discussing it in contrast with the tiger. So you will understand it. Now, I'm, I'm talking about certain characteristics of Blake's poetry. The first characteristics of the very dominant, for which now he is considered to be a very strong poet, that is visionary poetry. His poetry is visionary. Uh, David Dashes says that his poetry is visionary. Visionary in this sense that before composing certain poems, he visualized it. And even he goes to the extent that prophets met him and told him things, and angels met him and told them. Now, from psychological perspective, that the thing that this was hallucination or it was schizophrenia, or so many other things are there, or illusions, or but this thing is there that he had inspiration from presences, that sometimes you think that an angel is there and talking to him, or the soul of of prophet is there and talking with him and conveying certain things to him. But besides that, there is something else as well. Specifically, if we consider the tiger, so we see the tiger as an animal before us, a powerful and ferocious animal before us. But he is not looking only into its physical existence before him. He is looking back into how this animal would have come to existence. And that's why he asks questions from himself, that and he is surprised at that, at how is it possible that such a strong symmetry could have been framed and such ferocious eyes could have been uh, prepared. Like he asks a question: what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? So he's looking back into it, that how this ferocious animal, this strong animal came into existence. And he says, what the hand dare seize the fire, the fire, the brightening in your eyes, uh, who could hold it and place it in your eyes? And a surprise is that, did he who made the lame make thee? That is, make thee, that is, how is it possible that a creator who has made lame, a very innocent and peaceful animal, he has made you? Besides that, there are a few lines in another of his poem, the title of which I don't remember, but in that poem he says, to see a world in a grain of sand, and to see a world in a grain of sand, to see, uh, to hold in the palm of your hand, and to see eternity in an hour, and to see all beauty in a flower, things like that. He says, I don't exactly remember this. This is a very good portrait. So there, the first to see a world in a grain of sand. Like we are looking into blocks, like we have, this is a mountain, or this is a building, or this is a car, or this is a, things like that. But he is not looking at the whole, he is looking into the bits, and he moves back to the very origin. And that's why he says that uh, a man, a prophetic man, is the one who can see uh, uh, the world in a grain of sand, because it is actually the grain of sand which has resulted into buildings and so many other things. A small particle of sand that is there. Now, and he says to see eternity in an hour. So, how is it possible that eternity can be seen in an hour? So, a visionary person can see eternity in an hour. A person who doesn't have this power of visualizing things, or having the capacity of visionary, cannot understand these things. His poetry is intellectual. Intellectual in this sense that I was going through some article on him, and the person had stated that during his lifetime, many people called him mad in the sense that he was mentally abnormal. And the reason was that also written that he was idiosyncratic. Idiosyncratic is the person who has got peculiar behavior, means that he doesn't share in that behavior with other people, and that um, thinking, such thinkings in which other people do not share. So that is called idiosyncratic. So he was idiosyncratic, and he had too many idiosyncrasies. And this idiosyncratic characteristic made him intellectual. Many of his ideas, which were rejected by that time, were accepted later on. And even himself, like it happened that certain thoughts that he entertained by the year 1783 or by the year 1790, he rejected them in 1800 or 1798, like that. So he rejected those. But there is intellect in his poetry, like logical debate is available in his poems, and specifically where he is attacking, just in a single line, he is attacking the war stance of uh, British Empire, and attacking the justice system of British Empire, and attacking the women problem, because that it is said that it cannot be proved that he had ever met Mary Wollstonecraft, but certain things, specifically a poem, "The Daughters of Albion" is a poem. It is thought, it is believed, or considered that it was this poem specifically was inspired by Mary Wollstonecraft feminist stance, and there in the poem London, there is a reference to the pitiful and the miserable situation of women in England, specifically young girls. So intellectual thing is there. Uh, his poetry is mystical. I already told you about this thing, that he remained under the influence of the Bible, and his, even when he was dying, he was reciting songs of solemn songs, or certain other verses from uh, his Christian cult. His poetry is, for this reason, mystical, that he could see or he could imagine the presence of God everywhere. And like in the tiger and in the lame, he is directly referred to the Creator, and he would recognize him and associate himself with him in his talks as well as in his poetry. Mysticism, like there are certain secular people who also are interested in mysticism. For instance, Henry David Thoreau, that is the American transcendentalist, and he has he has been engaged in that thing. One remarkable thing is that uh, David Dashes has written about him that Blake's poetry shows the influence of his reading of the lyrics of Shakespeare. That is uh, Shakespeare's sonnets and plays that he had read. So his influence is visible. Shakespeare's influence is visible in his poetry. Similarly, Spenser's Fairy Queen and Dorothy and Stella, something like that. So uh, these poems he had read, and for this reason, uh, the influence of Edmund Spenser was also visible. And then he had read Milton. We know this thing because he had given that statement about Milton also. That most popular statement quoted everywhere, that though unknowingly, but Milton was from the devil's party. This is Blake said about him. So definitely he had read Paradise Lost in specific, and Blessed Das, and his blindness and so many other. So his uh, most probably in terms of using meter, because the greatest credit that is given to Milton is the use of his meter in Paradise Lost. That is visible on him. Furthermore, William Blake's poetry is very much symbolic, and it contains so many visual images in specific. Although auditory imagery is there, tactile imagery is there, olfactory imagery is there, but visual imagery is very dominant in Blake's poetry. This is all for now, and I'll be sending